Analysis of the fifth section of the essay, The Anthropocene Reviewed, CNN, by John Green. First, summary. In the fifth section of the essay, John Green criticizes CNN for prioritizing sensational news. In his opinion, there is a lack of regular coverage of global and slow-developing issues such as climate change and visually less engaging topics. Second, the fifth section of John Green's essay. Also, CNN does report the news, at least in a narrow sense. If it happened today and it was dramatic or scary or big, and it happened in the US or Europe, you will probably learn about it on CNN. But anything that unfolds slowly or that is hard to portray visually isn't regular fodder for CNN. So we don't see much about climate change unless a new report is published, nor do we see regular coverage of trends in child mortality. Third, analysis of content. In this section, John Green is using different rhetorical devices to explain his point of view. At the beginning, he is using irony to point out the lack of global, long-term mattering news covering. Therefore, he uses exaggeration and enumeration. Quote, if it happened today and it was dramatic or scary or big. Quote end. The enumeration, dramatic or scary or big, is emphasizing the kind of stories CNN usually prefers to cover. Those which are graphic, emotional, and fast-paced for the commonly Occidental watcher. John Green is actively using this exaggeration to show his concern about the limitation of mainstream news networks focusing too heavily on entertaining instead of covering in-depth and informing the watcher about what is going on in the world. At the same time, he is acknowledging CNN for reporting the news at least partly. Quote, CNN does report the news, at least in an hour's sense. Quote end. After this acknowledgement, his voice and tone are changing when he contrasts his first statement, highlighting the incompleteness of CNN's coverage. He is stating that even if Ted Turner's company is outstanding in breaking news, it is failing to provide coverage of ongoing or complex issues that don't immediately come to mind or catch the society's attention. He affirms this using an idiomatic expression. Quote, isn't regular fodder for CNN. Quote end. This phrase, traditionally more used in common language, is presenting his essay, which until then was kept more professional and academic, in a more approachable, accessible, and relatable way for the average reader. Lastly, John Green is smartly using a sensitive topic to support his thesis. Quote, nor do we see regular coverage of trends in child mortality. Quote end. The usage of a globally, strongly emotionally charged topic like child mortality is more likely to convince his readers than something they cannot relate to. Using this specific topic seems to emphasize the author's feelings about this cause, suggesting these topics being underreported despite their obvious importance. Overall, in this section of the essay, John Green is mostly using pathos to convince his readers. 4. How I relate to the topic of the essay. Personally, I think that John Green is addressing an important problem in this section. Due to the not complete lack of information about complex issues, the watcher gets the false feeling of knowledge. This can lead to misconception and misinterpretation. The watcher falls into an illusion of understanding, projecting wrong beliefs into a situation. When mainstream news networks only cover parts of an event, usually the most appealing one, the watcher gets the wrong idea about a certain situation. The author himself is later giving an according example, talking about his own experiences during his university years and how his roommate dealt with the war in Iraq. 5. Comparison of personal recordings with John Green's performance. Comparing my first recording and second recording with John Green's performance, I observe the difference in tone, intonation, and pitch. While John Green is explaining his point in a more calm and monotone way, sounding professional and unhashed, my performance was faster and more inconsistent. Especially my first recording, as I had not heard John Green before, was particularly intonated. The second one, after hearing John Green for the first time, was quieter. I held my voice more consistent and sounded less rushed. I talked more slowly too, imitating John Green's calm delivery. 6. Conclusion. In the fifth section of the Anthropocene Reviewed, CNN, John Green criticizes CNN's focus on sensational stories using irony, exaggeration, and emotional examples. His strategic use of relatable language and pathos highlights CNN's lack of coverage of complex, ongoing global issues in mainstream news. The author is calling for more comprehensive coverage to create a well-informed public.